Good morning once again from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and welcome to another fun and exciting edition of Things That Might Kill You with me, Donald Jones. On this episode today of Things That Might Kill You, we're talking about flooding, tornadoes, damaging winds, large hail, and probably snakes because, always snakes. Can everybody hear me? We had a problem yesterday with the audio not working initially, but it looks like it is, so I'm going to go with yes. As always, this is a live interactive briefing, so if you have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comments section, which I see is up and running already, and I'll be happy to answer it just as soon as we wrap up our briefing. As we just talked about, a lot to talk about, so let's go ahead and jump right on in here this morning. We've been talking about this area of low pressure that's going to develop kind of along a warm front. That warm front actually moved through the area earlier this morning. And if you stepped outside so far this morning, you probably noticed it's a little bit more humid than we've seen the last couple of days. That's because we've got those south winds now on the backside of that warm front. That's pushing in a lot of moisture into the area, and that's going to set the stage for essentially what's going to be a 3-day, effectively, weather event. Now, the good news is the severe weather threat that we're going to be dealing with is mainly only going to be today and possibly into tonight. By the time we get into tomorrow and Thursday, we're not looking at much in the way of a severe weather event. Now, the flash flood threat is going to exist essentially from this afternoon all the way through Thursday evening. So the rain is going to continue. It's just not going to be severe Wednesday and Thursday. The main severe weather threat is going to be this afternoon into tonight. So that's kind of what we're going to kind of keep that in mind when we're talking about this. The severe weather threat this afternoon and tonight, the flood risk is going to be a much longer duration all the way through about Thursday evening. Now, all forms of severe weather are going to be possible. We're talking tornadoes, damaging winds, and large hail. And then we're also going to be looking at that risk of flash flooding. So what we're looking at here, again, we had that warm front that's lifted through the area. You can't really tell specifically exactly when a warm front moves through, other than you'll see a little bit of a wind shift, usually from north to south. But what you will notice is that it gets gradually more humid. And we're looking at the dew points in the mid to upper 60s here this morning already. Those are going to continue to increase through the day, and that's going to provide the moisture for all of that rain. Then we've got this other area of low pressure that's actually kind of developing or going to develop along this warm front. As it kind of lifts to the north, it's going to very slowly kind of work its way to the east. And that's why we're going to be looking at this long duration rain event, because it's not moving very quickly. So we're going to be looking at this low pressure area just kind of sitting over here going into this evening, going into tomorrow. You can see that frontal boundary is going to kind of stall somewhere across central Louisiana and just kind of sit there. And then as we go into Thursday, that low will actually finally push through and bring a little bit of a cold front with it. It's not going to be cold by any means, but it will finally push all this moisture out of here. But it's not going to be until Thursday evening that all of this rain actually does get out of here. We do have a flash flood watch in effect. This was issued. This doesn't actually go into effect until 1 o'clock this afternoon, even though it's been issued for quite some time. Let me make this full screen real quick. There it is. So you can see pretty much all of southwest Louisiana, southeast Texas, and this actually does include, it's not on there, but it does include southeast Louisiana as well. Essentially, the whole state of Louisiana is under a flash flood watch as of this afternoon, and a large part of East Texas as well. We're looking at anywhere between 3 to 8 inches of rain, with some areas seeing possibly up to a foot, if not more than a foot, of rain with this storm over the course of that 3-day period. It's not going to fall all at once, but there is going to be the potential for heavy rain. So we could be looking at periods where you could pick up a quick 2-3 inches within just a couple of hours. So it's not going to all fall at once, but there will be intermittent periods where you may pick up a majority of what you're going to see over a relatively short period of time. This is a look at the excessive rainfall outlook. This is essentially a product that shows the likelihood of seeing flash flooding. Let me see if I can make this full screen again for you so you can take a closer look at it. You can see the majority of the region away from the immediate coastline in that red area. That's a 40% or greater chance of seeing flash flooding within 25 miles of a location. So when you think about that, you're looking at between roughly about a 40 to 69% chance. That's 50-50 or better, essentially. So that's relatively high, considering the chances of you flooding on any given day is virtually zero or very, very low. as long as your pipes don't burst. But that's actually a very high probability for flooding given any given day. So just kind of keep that in mind. The overall flood probability is a little bit lower, closer to the coast. That's more related actually to the just kind of the nature of the coast. If you think about the Cameron coast, it's a very marshy area. A lot of areas right along the immediate coastline are very marshy areas. So it's a lot harder for those areas to flood. That's kind of why that's a lower overall risk. But that's not necessarily a testament to seeing significantly less rain right along the coast. It's more just the makeup of the coastline itself. Going into Wednesday, you can see we do continue to see that flash flood threat continue. A little bit lower, but we're still looking at least a 15% chance, between about a 15 and 40% chance of seeing flash flooding across the region. And then you can see a little bit lower in terms of overall flash flood probability further to the north. The problem with this graphic that might be a little bit of a misnomer is, flooding is accumulative. So we may see, 3 or 4 inches of rainfall today, and then that primes the area for another several inches of rain tomorrow that could lead to more flash flooding. If you flood today, there's just a even higher probability that you're going to flood again tomorrow because the ground already becomes saturated, the waterways become full, and at that point you essentially increase your odds of flooding. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as we go through the next few days. Each day that we continue to see this heavy rainfall, those accumulations make it progressively more likely, if I could not drop my remote, that we are going to see flooding. So the highest overall risk might wind up being Wednesday or Thursday if that you gradually see several inches of rain with each day. Go forward here. Why is this not working? You're killing me. Go. Did I break my remote? Possibly. It's okay. We're going to get there. This is live TV. Nothing goes perfect. All right, so here's a look at the current forecast rainfall totals. And if you watched us yesterday morning, you may notice these are ever so slightly lower than what we saw this time yesterday. Not significantly so. We're still looking at anywhere between about 3 to 8 inches of rain with up to a foot of rain possible. What I want you to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at this graphic, don't focus specifically on the exact amount that we're expecting to see in a particular area. So for example, you see there's kind of a bullseye over the Lafayette area, 6 to 8 inches. That 6 to 8 inches may wind up being anywhere across the area. It could be up towards Alexandria. It could be down towards Morgan City. It could be in Lake Charles. It could be up in Opelousas. The state of meteorology is just not good enough to pinpoint exactly what area is going to see the highest amounts of rainfall, where those little bullseyes are actually going to set up. We're just not that good. And anybody that tells you they can is lying to you. What this does kind of give you an idea, though, is to say that you're going to see somebody is going to see that much. So somebody is going to see 6 to 8 inches across southwest or south central Louisiana, possibly up to a foot of rain. Now, not everybody's going to see that much. I think the majority of the area is going to see anywhere between 2 and 5 inches of rain. Some areas may see as much as 8. A couple of spots may see as much as a foot. Exactly what areas are going to see a foot, I can't tell you. So don't ask me, are we going to see a foot at my house, because I can't tell you with any degree of certainty. There's a lot of very small factors that go into exactly where the heaviest rain sets up. There are what are called mesoscale features. They're small scale features that happen on the order of just a few miles that computer models are not capable of resolving. And for that reason, we're not able to pinpoint exactly what areas are going to see the most versus the least. But the bottom line is we're looking at a lot of rain over the course of this 2 to 3 day period, and somebody or some group of people is going to see some flash flooding. We were debating earlier about how many flash flood emergencies we're going to see. So essentially, a flash flood emergency is a flash flood warning that's issued when we're expecting or when there's high water rescues, where there's water in homes, where there's life-threatening water conditions. And we do expect that there's going to be at least a few of those with this event. Maybe it's not today, maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's late tonight, but we do expect that it's going to happen for somebody at some point going through this event either today, tomorrow, possibly into Thursday as well. Taking a look now at the timing graphics here, this kind of gives you an idea as far as the probabilities. I've been getting a lot of questions about, I have to travel from here to there sometime over the next couple of days. When's the best time to travel? And unfortunately, there's not going to be a really good time where we're going to have a significant break in this rain once it gets going. We're going to be looking at this activity getting going probably about late this morning, early this afternoon. We're going to be looking at probably maybe by about noon, 1 o'clock this afternoon for those stronger storms to get going, that heavy rain and that severe weather risk to get started. I know there's a lot of questions here. When's the severe weather going to start? Probably by about 12 or 1 o'clock this afternoon, and then it's going to continue through about midnight tonight. Now, if you take a look at this graphic here, you see there is a little bit of a period kind of very late tonight into early tomorrow morning where the probabilities of rain go down a little bit. We're looking at about a 30 to 60% chance from about midnight to about 6 a.m. Wednesday morning. And that's because we're going to cool off, obviously, with the loss of daytime heating overnight. And that will allow some of the storms to die off. So if you're looking for the most likely time where you're going to get a break, that's when it's going to be. Unfortunately, it's going to be between about midnight and 6 a.m. when nobody wants to be out on the roads anyway. But that's going to be your best time to travel from a lack of rain perspective. Same thing going Wednesday night into Thursday morning. You can see after about 9 p.m. Wednesday evening through about 3 a.m. Thursday morning, you can see those probabilities come down a little bit, about 30 to 50% chance of rain during that period. So that's going to kind of be your period for breaks in the rain. Otherwise, we're looking at anywhere between about a 60 to 90% chance of rain all afternoon and night and evening Tuesday, pretty much all day Wednesday, and most of the day Thursday. So very high rain chances, and there's not going to be a whole lot of breaks between them other than perhaps late at night. Same thing for our Southeast Texas cities. You can see the same idea there. Little bits of a break late tonight between about midnight and maybe 6 a.m. Same thing Wednesday night into Thursday morning. You can see those probabilities go down to about 20 to 40% between about 9 p.m. and 3 a.m. For Southeast Texas. But we're still looking at very high probabilities pretty much any time during the daylight hours when one would want to get out and travel today, tomorrow, and into Thursday as well. All right, let's talk a little bit about specific severe weather and what we're going to be looking at with that. Again, we're expecting the severe weather to begin early this afternoon, probably somewhere around 1 o'clock or thereabouts, and it's going to continue through the late evening. So it will continue after dark tonight through probably about midnight, a little bit after midnight tonight. Then the severe weather threat will diminish. As we go into Wednesday and Thursday, I'm not expecting severe weather Wednesday or Thursday. This is going to be today and tonight for the severe weather threat. Now, the severe weather threat, unfortunately, has increased a little bit compared to yesterday. So you can see we now have a little bit of an enhanced risk area. That's a category 3 out of 5 on the Storm Prediction Center severe weather scale. You can see that covers parts of Tyler and Hardin County, as well as kind of northwestern Jasper County up that way. The rest of the area has been increased to a slight risk. That's a category 2 out of 5. Those are the areas highlighted in yellow here. And this has been expanded to cover parts of south central Louisiana. The Lake Charles area was already in a slight risk with the graphic yesterday. It's now been expanded to include pretty much all of south central Louisiana as well. So Lafayette, New Iberia, you're now in this. Over towards Baton Rouge, you're in that slight risk area as well. Now, what does that mean? Let's talk about exactly what we're talking about in terms of probabilities. So what we're looking at first is the probability of damaging straight line winds. This is winds caused by thunderstorms that are not related to a tornado, but ones that are still potentially, that could potentially do damage. So 60 mile an hour or greater winds. We're looking at a 15 to 30% chance of seeing 60 mile an hour or greater winds within 25 miles of any location that's in the yellow. So that's pretty much everywhere, effectively, across Southeast Texas and Southwest Louisiana for this afternoon and evening. So, for example, if you live here in Lake Charles, there's a 15 to 30% chance that you're going to see 60 mile an hour winds within 25 miles of Lake Charles. So that could potentially be Vinton, for example, or as far east as, say, probably Crowley or thereabouts. That would technically qualify. So if we had damage in Vinton, that would technically qualify as having met this threshold. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to see these damaging winds, obviously, but there is a probability that it could occur nearby, if not directly over you. Now, taking a look at the risk of large hail, same idea. The higher overall risk, though, is going to be further to the west across southeast Texas and western Louisiana. Again, we're looking at a 15 to 30% chance of seeing at least quarter-size hail. That's considered large. That's where we start seeing damage from hail across southeast Texas and western Louisiana. The areas highlighted in brown over towards Lafayette, New Iberia, up towards Alexandria, Opelousas, and areas in between, you're in a little bit lower overall risk for hail, 15 to 30% chance of seeing quarter-size or larger hail within 25 miles of location. So roughly 1 in 3 of seeing quarter-size hail within 25 miles of a location in those areas. Now, the all-important tornadoes. Everybody's afraid of tornadoes. I've seen a couple of comments already asking about tornadoes. There is going to be a risk of tornadoes, unfortunately, this afternoon into tonight. We're looking at roughly about a 10 to 15% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of locations across Tyler and Hardin counties. Those are the areas highlighted in yellow there. And you can see what we call the hatched area, those dashed lines. That's indicating at least a 10% chance of seeing an EF2 or greater tornado. So there is a risk of strong tornadoes with this. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to see a tornado. Not everybody's going to see a strong tornado, but there is going to be a risk of tornadoes with this event this afternoon into tonight. But as we were talking about earlier, this is not going to continue into Wednesday and Thursday. So the flooding threat, the rain threat is going to continue into Wednesday and Thursday, but the tornado threat, the severe weather threat, is going to be confined to today and tonight. You can see across most of the rest of the region, we're looking at about a 5 to 10% chance. That's the areas highlighted in brown, which pretty much covers all of the rest of our parishes and counties that are not Tyler and Hardin. So roughly about a 5 to 10% chance, or a 1 in 10 chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of any given location. So for example, let's say Alexandria, there's about a 10% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of Alexandria. Finally, taking a quick look at our 5-day forecast. Obviously, it's going to be wet today, tomorrow, into Thursday. The rain chances are going to come down somewhat Friday into Saturday, but we're still going to be looking at a chance of rain all the way through the weekend. It's just going to be a little bit lower. But the vast majority of the heavy rainfall, the potential for flooding, is going to be today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Finally, I want to remind everyone, if you were on here yesterday, you're well aware of this, but we are looking at radar outages, unfortunately, with this event. So the Lake Charles radar is potentially going to be out early this morning. It should be back up by this afternoon, but as that goes down, or as that comes back up, the Fort Johnson radar is then scheduled to be taken down Wednesday, pretty much all day Wednesday and Thursday morning. This is because they have to do a critical repair on both radars. The good news is that we have these two radars, and both of them are capable of seeing the same area. So when one's down, we'll be able to use the other, and vice versa. So we should still be able to issue warnings. We should still be able to see everything that's going on. We should still be able to see any issues with flooding. So it's not ideal timing, obviously, that these radars are going to be down periodically, but it should not affect our abilities to see what's going on or our abilities to get those warnings out as needed. So that's what we have here this morning from the National Weather Service. I'll be happy to answer your questions here over the next few minutes. Let me go ahead and back up here, and we will talk about whatever you want to talk about. Let me go ahead and I'm going to pull the rainfall values up here while I check. So let me look here. Give me just a moment. A couple of people asking me questions in Spanish. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish. I've tried to take a few classes, but other than tiempo, which means weather, honestly, I don't speak Spanish well enough to be able to ask or answer questions in it. Maybe one day, but not at present. Natalie asks, will this impact our drive to New Orleans to see Shinedown tonight? I don't know who Shinedown is. Hopefully that's not embarrassing for me. But yeah, this will impact drives pretty much anywhere starting this afternoon and into tonight. This is going to affect the New Orleans area too. All of this activity that's moving here will also affect southeast Louisiana just a few hours later. It's going to be more kind of a mid to late afternoon into tomorrow night event for them. There will be a severe weather threat over there, and there will be a flash flood threat over there as well. Oceana asked, did they complete the maintenance on the equipment? It's still ongoing, like we just talked about. It is on track, so I don't think they had any delays, but that maintenance is going to have to continue. Yanez says, what level is for Lafayette? As far as the severe weather threat, Lafayette is in a slight risk. So let me pull this over here. So you can see pretty much all of the area is in a slight risk, with the exception of parts of Tyler and Hardin County and points west. You can see they're in that higher Category 3 risk, that enhanced risk. But the majority of the region is in a slight risk, which is the Category 2 out of 5. So what that means is essentially you've got a 15 to 30% chance of seeing damaging winds, 60 miles an hour or greater. A 15 to 30% chance, I lied, I messed that one up. It's actually a 5 to 15% chance of seeing large hail. And go forward. For the tornado threat, you're looking at roughly about a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado as well for the Lafayette area. Sarah is so scared of tornadoes. Don't be scared of tornadoes, Sarah. I understand they're scary things, but the likelihood of you being hit by a tornado, especially in this part of the world, is very low. It's not zero. It's important to be prepared, obviously. It's important to be aware of what's going on, but being afraid of them gives them more power. No, not really. You don't want to wind up in a situation where you're paralyzed by fear and unable to make a decision or react when a tornado warning is issued. If a tornado warning is issued, you want to make sure you know what you should do. Have a plan, and that'll kind of take the fear out of it a little bit. If you know what you're going to do, and then if a warning is issued, you enact your plan. You get in your safe space, wherever that may be, lowest floor, interior room, no windows. You can have pillows, blankets, and such to put over your head. That could help if you are, God forbid, hit by a tornado. But that kind of takes some of the fear out of it, having a plan, knowing what you will do in the event of a tornado. Phyllis says, how accurate is the HRR? It's showing most of the storms at the center and northern part of the state. What you have to keep in mind about the HRR, which stands for the High Resolution Rapid Refresh, it's a computer model. It's a computer model that actually updates every hour. And that's good in some ways and bad in others. It's good in the fact that it has all the latest observations. It has all the latest radar data. So it can react more quickly to changing conditions. The bad news is you have to keep in mind that it's just one run of one computer model. So it may show something 1 hour, and then the next hour it'll show something completely different. So we don't rely on single computer models. I can't tell you that run of that model is accurate and that's what's going to happen. What we look for is a consensus of computer models. We use a bunch of different ones. We want to see them all trying to do the same thing. So I can't sit here and tell you that the run of the computer model that you're looking at, of that run of the HRR, is accurate, because I don't know. I can't tell you with certain. What we want to see is a lot of the computer models doing the same thing. When they do that, just like with hurricanes, that's when we grow confidence in our forecast. I see some Danny promoter. I don't know what this is. I know he's giving you all a lot of trouble. Unfortunately, I can't block him and or delete him until I get off here. Just ignore him. There's plenty of that out there in the world of social media, unfortunately. Samela says, we have people traveling into Beaumont for an event, so no significant threat of severe weather anticipated for Wednesday for Southeast Texas. Not severe weather, but there is going to be a risk of flash flooding. Keep in mind, it is going to be raining. You're still going to be looking at periods of heavy rain and the threat for flash flooding. But no, we're not expecting, tornadoes, large hail, damaging winds. We're not expecting that. But there will be heavy rain and the potential for flash flooding pretty much all day. Art asks, is there a concern that tides and coastal flooding will impede drainage for this event? We are going to be looking, that's a good question. We are going to be looking at some pretty stiff southerly winds, looking at gusts to possibly 30 miles an hour, especially as we get into the day. And yes, that will have the potential to impede runoff. What happens is we get a heavy rain event, that water then runs off into the area rivers. It makes its way towards the Gulf. But when we have a strong southerly wind, just like with a hurricane, that tends to drive almost like a storm surge to the coast and sometimes up rivers, and that prevents the water that's trying to drain out from draining out effectively. So yes, that is going to be an issue. That is something that actually the River Forecast Center, which does our forecasts for our rivers, is taking into consideration as well. There is likely going to be some significant river flooding out of this event over the next couple of days. Unfortunately, just like with when we're talking about, we can't predict exactly where the heaviest rain is going to fall. Where that falls has a very outsized influence on what those rivers are going to do, obviously. So that's incredibly difficult to forecast what that river flooding is going to look like. But those southerly winds leading to that coastal flooding and preventing that runoff is going to make that situation worse. It's not going to be particularly long-lived. We're looking at strong winds today. They are going to kind of die off tomorrow and Thursday, and then we're actually going to have that weak cold front come through. So by Thursday evening, the winds will actually turn out of the north. So it's going to be mainly an issue that we're going to be dealing with today and tonight, not so much going through the rest of the event and the rest of the week. Cookie that says he is talking about the hurricane by Puerto Rico that the GFS model is showing around May 19th. Okay. With regards to that, it's getting to be that time of year again, unfortunately, where the computer models, especially in the extended range, we're talking May 19th, you said? That's what, 15 days from now? No faith. Put no faith in that whatsoever. There's plenty of clickbait out there that's going to try to throw. And again, we're just like we were talking about with computer models earlier. A single run of a single computer model is worthless. Okay. And a single run of a single computer model 15 days from now is absolutely dog. You know what? I can't say that stuff on the air anymore. The bottom line is, put zero faith in that whatsoever. It is getting to be that time of year, so obviously the computer models are starting to pick up on those tropical waves, and naturally they want to try to develop them right off the bat. Is it a possibility that we could see one that early in the year? Yeah, it is. Is it likely at this point? Very much not. So put zero faith in any computer model that far out in time. I did see that, unfortunately. But I have zero faith in it whatsoever. Nicole says, how you don't know who Shinedown is? Are you that young? I'm not that young. I may be young. I am not that savvy when it comes to especially older bands and entertainers. So yes, I'm sorry. I don't know who they are. Gregory asks, what are the estimated rates of rainfall per hour? Generally speaking, we could be looking at anywhere between up to 1 inch per hour to as high as, at times, possibly 5 inches per hour. Now, that tends to be fairly short-lived. When we're talking about a rainfall rate of 5 inches an hour, it doesn't actually usually last an hour to get that 5-inch rainfall rate. But 3-4 inches an hour, not completely out of the realm of possibility. All of this very deep moisture that's moving in that we were just talking about at the top of the broadcast here, that's going to essentially prime the atmosphere. There's a lot of moisture, and the more moisture there is, obviously, the more rain can potentially develop in those storms. Natalie says, OMG, Shinedown is the best band. Christine says it's a band. I knew I was going to get messed with for that. I'm sorry, I don't know. There's probably people here would give me grief for that as well. Andy says, does the timing of the day go into the decision for the flash flood emergency? Example, the morning travel commute versus middle of the day. Not so much. That it's mainly how much rain has fallen, and if we get reports of water getting into houses, water stranding motorists on roadways that need to be rescued, what we call high water rescues. If we get a report of a high water rescue, it's usually going to get an emergency wording at that point. But we'll sometimes do that even before we get any kind of report if we're just getting insane amounts of rain and we know that it's becoming a problem. We could get that emergency. But time of the day really doesn't have a whole lot to do with it. We don't really consider commute times and stuff like that with regards to putting out the emergency. It's more, when we start getting those reports in, or we're sure that it's going to be something that's going to cause trouble. Or as it was put to us, I think in some training we did recently, a flash flood warning essentially means that you can find trouble if you go out to it. A flash flood emergency means trouble has already found you. It's a pretty good way of thinking about it. Castmodian asks, are there any projections yet on how this will affect river flooding? We do have a river flooding forecast based on about 48 hours worth of rainfall, but unfortunately we can't put a whole lot of faith in that because we don't know exactly where that rain is specifically going to fall. You know, if we have a 12-inch bullseye that sets up in one area versus another, that's going to have a huge impact on what kind of river flooding we're going to see on one river versus another. So unfortunately, it's very, very difficult to do river flooding before the rain actually falls. We'll have a much better idea once we start seeing that rain begin to accumulate. But at this point, before it's actually fallen, I can't say with any real degree of certainty. Terry asked what time for the Lafayette area. We're going to be looking at the rain beginning pretty much across the whole area, including Lafayette, early this afternoon. So noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then continuing pretty much nonstop through the afternoon and evening. Maybe a little bit of a break kind of overnight after midnight, between about, say, midnight and 6 a.m. But then we're going to be looking at another round of rain. Not severe weather tomorrow, but rain pretty much all day tomorrow and all day Thursday. Tina asks, how long will the severe weather last? What is the timing? Like we talked about just now, we're looking at between about noon and 1 p.m. for it to get started. The severe weather is going to last through late tonight. So I'd say between about, we'll call it between about noon and midnight, you're going to be at risk for severe weather. Going into tomorrow, the rain's going to continue, but not the severe weather. Jennifer says, Miss Wright's 5th grade class is tuning in from Sour Lake. Hi, Miss Wright's 5th grade class. Thanks for tuning in and joining us and getting weather aware for the weather event that we're unfolding, that's going to be unfolding here today. You want to know what type of weather situation can we expect at dismissal at 3 p.m.? You're going to be looking at probably some ongoing thunderstorms, potentially very heavy rainfall, and some of those storms are going to be severe. I can't tell you for certain that you're going to have a severe thunderstorm over you right at 3 p.m., but there are likely to be severe thunderstorms ongoing at that time. So yeah, it is going to be, I don't want to call it a dangerous dismissal, but it is going to be something that you're going to need to be very well aware of, and potentially dodging very heavy thunderstorms, likely going to have some lightning around, and potential severe weather as well. So make sure to keep an eye on the radar. Well, not the radar necessarily, but keep an eye on whether any warnings are issued, especially during that time right around dismissal. And thanks for watching. Nikki says, I know you don't have a magic 8-ball. You don't know that. I might have one right here. I don't, but I might. Jody says, I'm the man. I am the man. Sometimes. I won't be the man if this is a busted forecast and it winds up being sunshine, beautiful day. It's not going to be, but it's happened before. Tim asks, are you thinking about the Sabine at Deweyville for this evening? Yeah, we were looking at the forecast and the possibilities for the Sabine earlier here this morning. And again, it's going to depend on exactly how much rain we see in that area and in the entire watershed. You know, there's a large area that flows into the Sabine, and exactly where those higher rainfall totals fall is going to determine where they're going to run off and how much flooding we actually see along those rivers. Patrick says, TikTok weather personalities are not reliable. They aren't trained or went to school for forecasting. That's true. Can't argue with any of that. Bella says, I bet Donald is a gamer. He reminds me of my husband's nerd friends. Nerd, yes. Gamer, maybe. I dabble. I'm not nearly as devoted as some people. Wyatt says, hope we don't get what happened to rain a few weeks back. But that's the point I'm trying to make. That is likely to happen somewhere. It may not happen in rain, but it's likely to happen somewhere. Rain got, I think, a little over 10 inches of rain with that event. We're expecting that somewhere across the area with this event. I can't tell you exactly where, but we are expecting it to happen somewhere. Bonnie's never heard of Shine Down either, so there. Me and Bonnie, we're together. We don't know who Shine Down is. Timmy says he can't read the board. What's the tornado risk for the Lake Charles area? That's okay. I can make it much bigger so you can read the board. There it is. All right, so here's the probability of tornado. You're looking at roughly about a 5 to 10% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of Lake Charles. Timmy says, so is it a high risk? No, it's actually a slight risk by definition. So here's our graphic showing the risk area. You can see most of the region in that yellow area. That's a slight risk, a category 2 out of 5 on the Storm Prediction Center severe weather scale. There is a higher area across parts of southeast Texas and the enhanced risk. That's the area highlighted in orange there. So that's parts of Tyler County and Hardin County, but the most of the region is in that slight risk, that category 2 out of 5. Phyllis says, right now all of the storms to the west of us are moving fast. When the system stalls, does that mean the individual storms will stay in place and not move fast? Individual storms are probably going to be traveling at different speeds. Some of them are going to be moving very slow. I do expect that they're going to, in general, be moving slower than you're seeing out there right now. The problem with these storms is not only the speed that each individual storm is moving, but you may wind up in a situation where you have multiple storms moving over the same area. It's a process we call training. So you may have one storm that's moving through an area, 30, 35 miles an hour. It's dumping heavy rain, but it only lasts maybe 20, 30 minutes, and then it moves on. But then there's another storm that comes right behind that, and that's dropping more heavy rain. So the accumulative factor of a long duration with a very short break in between of that heavy rain is what leads to flash flooding. And that's what we're expecting to occur across the area today. So the individual storms are going to be moving for the most part. We're not expecting them just to park over the same area, but the storms may be moving in a line to where they keep moving over the same areas over and over again. And that is what could potentially result in those very high rainfall totals. That's where somebody's going to see 10 plus inches of rain and see some significant flooding. Joyce says, how much in rain in Church Point? As I've been harping on pretty good for the last few minutes, I can't tell you exactly how much rain you're going to see in a particular area. In general, here are our ranges, but even this will have the potential to be off. So Church Point, you're in that 4 to 6 inch kind of area. But don't quote me on that. You could be seeing significantly more or significantly less. Timmy says, and all of this is around 3 to 5-ish. No, we're going to be looking at this beginning as early as noon today, and it's going to continue pretty much all through the rest of the day and into tonight. And then the rain is going to continue all day tomorrow and all day Thursday. Kagan asks, is this expected to stall at severe levels like 60, 70 mile an hour winds stalled with the torrential rain? No, I don't think so. Kind of like we were talking about just a couple of minutes ago, the storms are going to be moving. So any kind of severe weather, you're not going to be looking at an hour's worth of 60 or 70 mile an hour winds. This isn't a hurricane. If you're going to be looking at damaging winds, they're only going to last probably a minute or two. They're often very, very fast. Obviously, they're moving very fast, so they have to be moving. So you're not going to be in a situation where you're going to be looking at long duration damaging winds, nor is a tornado going to sit in one area and just spin. They're going to be moving. But the thing is, you may be looking at a severe storm with damaging winds that moves through, and then you have another strong storm that moves in very quickly thereafter. So you continue to see that very heavy rainfall. Hang on just a moment.
Looks like it's, they have the tornado hatch that positive or something like that.
Okay. So I've actually, let me see if I can pull this up here real quick. I've just been told that there's an updated graphic for the severe weather outlook. So I want to see if I can pull that up real quick. Stand by just a moment. I knew they were coming out with an update at 8 o'clock here this morning, but I didn't know if they were going to make a significant change to it. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick, and we can look at it together. Oh, that is a fairly significant change. All right. Give me just a moment. I'm going to throw it up here on the screen. La-di-da-di-da. And get over here. And go to slideshow. Give that just a moment. All right, so this is a little bit just bare bones, but this will kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at here. So this is the latest updated from the Storm Prediction Center. You can see that enhanced risk, that category 3 out of 5 on the Storm Prediction Center severe weather scale, that has been extended to the east. It now includes parts of western Louisiana, so Vernon Parish, Beauregard Parish, essentially all the way south to as far south as Lake Charles. This is going to include northern Jeff Davis, all of Allen, western Rapides Parish to just west of Alexandria, and looks like the kind of the western third of Evangeline Parish as well. So this is a higher overall risk here. For it looks like the tornado threat is what is actually increased here. So let me see if I can bounce back here. And we'll look. No, it's the wind threat that has actually increased. Let me throw that up there. Watch me make graphics here in real time. All right, so and we'll make this nice and big. So this is the damaging wind threat here, and you can see that has been expanded now. So we're looking at about a 30 to 45% chance now of seeing damaging winds. That's the same area that we just talked about that's in the enhanced risk. So we're looking at roughly about a 30 to 45% chance across of 60 mile an hour or greater winds across Tyler, Hardin, Jasper, Newton, Northern Orange, kind of the northern half of Calcasieu, all of Beauregard, all of Vernon, the western half of Rapides, all of Allen, the western third-ish of Evangeline, and the northern third-ish of Jeff Davis. So that's an increase in the overall risk. This is, again, mainly going to be this afternoon into tonight. So we're looking at roughly from about 1 p.m. this afternoon through about midnight tonight. Tim asks, will the SPC be moving the level 3 area eastward as the complex moves east? You are very prescient, Tim. That is exactly what just happened. So yeah, Joni is saying the same thing. Yeah, the SBC did just, and that's the problem, unfortunately, with me doing these briefings at this time of the morning. I didn't really have much of a choice, but yeah, Storm Prediction Center does do an updated graphic package at right at 8 a.m. So everything we just talked about then, not everything, but the risk has been expanded a little bit further than what we were talking about. Karen asked about any early dismissals. If so, what parishes have issued these? I'm not aware of any decisions on early dismissals. If any parishes have made them, I haven't heard. So I'm not aware of any at this point. Phyllis says, I've just read a report that stated the GFS has been continually wrong over the past few months due to cuts. Well, the GFS has gone through periods of being continually wrong for no good reason at all. So it may or may not be related to any kind of cuts. There is an argument to be made. I'm not going to get into the politics of it, But just speaking from a scientific perspective, there have been Weather Service offices that have had to cut back on the number of weather balloons they release. And that's significantly less data that's going into computer models, not just the GFS, but all of them. So is that less data having an adverse effect on the computer model's ability to spit out an accurate forecast or an accurate prediction in any way? It's possible that there's going to have to be some research done on how much of an effect. There's anecdotal evidence that it is having an effect, but I can't say for certain one way or the other. Naturally, you would expect that when you have less data, you would get worse results. That's just, kind of basic logical understanding. How much it's being impacted, though, is not for surely known at this point. Pixie Dust does not approve this update. I don't blame you, Pixie Dust. I don't approve of it either, but unfortunately it is there, so we've got to deal with it. Diana asks, is it good luck if it rains on your birthday? I've heard that. There's no meteorological science to support that, but that's what they've told me on days that it's rained on my birthday. Excuse me. Angie says these models don't operate without data, right? And the data comes from the weather balloons. Is that correct? The data does come from weather balloons, but it comes from more than just weather balloons. Satellites offer a lot of data that goes into computer models. Those are still running, obviously, at full capacity. Surface observation networks, which we have, are still running regularly. So there's still plenty of data going into the computer models. There's just not as much as perhaps there would otherwise be. There's, I think, a few dozen weather offices right now that are only doing either one or no weather balloon releases. So is that having an effect? It's having an effect. How much of an effect? I can't say for certain right now. But obviously, anytime you're talking about having less data, you're going to have some kind of an effect. Well, it says most of the models out there right now are wrong. For example, every weather map that's showing rainfall totals is hardly nothing for Texas. Well, what you have to keep in mind is, again, individual model runs are always wrong. There's no individual model run out there that is going to nail this forecast perfectly or any forecast perfectly. That's why we don't look at individual computer models. We want to look for a consensus. We want to look at several computer models showing the same or very similar solutions. That gives us confidence in the forecast. So even in the best of times, in the best situations where we have all the data in the world available, an individual computer model is still going to be wrong. Christopher says, is it looking like more of a tornado threat now for Southeast Texas and not so much rain? No, it is still looking at so much rain. The rain is going to happen regardless of the severe weather risk. There is still a tornado threat for Southeast Texas. There is also a flash flood threat for Southeast Texas. Now, as we go into tomorrow, there will not be a severe weather threat. There won't be a tornado threat tomorrow. There won't be a tornado threat Thursday, but there will continue to be a flash flood risk today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Kathy says, I appreciate these briefings. It helps to ground me and take the hype out. Just the facts. That's all we're trying to do here. And like we were talking about earlier, this is not something to be afraid of. It's something to prepare for and be aware of. Fear does nothing for nobody. The more information you have, the more you can plan, the better planned you are, the less you have to fear. So, that's the goal. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up for the time being. We've been going for almost an hour at this point, and I have to get out of here. I've been here since midnight tonight, so I need to give me some sleep. But we do, obviously, I'm leaving for the morning here, but there are plenty of people here. It's not like we're going to leave and just say, good luck, be done with it. So we do have plenty of forecasters here. They'll continue to monitor the situation. Obviously, they'll be issuing warnings, and they will continue to provide updates via social media through the day, including we'll try to get these graphics out for you here soon with the updated Storm Prediction Center stuff momentarily. In the meantime, if you have a question that I missed for some reason, or if you're viewing this as a recording, send us a direct message on Facebook. I'll be happy to answer your questions that way. You can also send us a message on X. We're on X. We're also on Instagram. You can send us a message that way. You can still give us a call. Our phone lines are open now. Our phones are only available 8 to 4 now, but you can call us. Area code 337-477-5285. Let me see if I can throw that on there. Give me just a moment. Where is the phone number? Give me the phone number. There it is. All right, so there it is on the bottom right hand of your screen. If you do want to give us a call, 337-477-5285. So lots of ways to get in touch with us if you do still have any questions. We will continue to provide updates, though, on our social media pages as the situation evolves through the day. You definitely want to make sure you have a way of getting severe weather warnings if they are issued. It wouldn't surprise me at all if we see a severe thunderstorm or tornado watch issued late this morning or early this afternoon. And then you want to be aware if any of those warnings are issued as well. So phone apps are good. Weather radio is good. TV and radio outlets, media outlets, also good choices. But have a way to get those warnings and watches if and when they are issued later on today. We are going to try to do another one of these tomorrow morning. It's going to depend on what kind of weather we're dealing with at the time. Obviously, those warnings have to take precedence. So, if we're in the middle of issuing warnings, we may not be able to provide a live update. So we'll kind of have to play that by ear. I'm tentatively planning on doing one in the morning, but we'll see how that evolves with how the warning situation is at that time. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay weather aware through the day, through the night, and really the next couple of days, because remember, severe today and tonight, but the flash flood threat is going to continue today, tomorrow, and Thursday. Stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay calm. Don't freak out. It's going to be okay. And we'll talk to you again tomorrow.